Hello, Michael. Another week.
Dongy, pleasure to be here as always.
Yeah.
You're looking absolutely spectacular tonight.
Thank you, Michael. It's been a fun week, hasn't it? Yeah,
It's been a fun week.
Let's talk about what we came here to talk about, which is the grand final.
Man. You know what? I loved both the prelims. We get to the grand final, lots of anticipation, lots of excitement, and we get a team that's really on fire, and we get another team that's, let's say, battle hardened.
Yeah.
Because they've had a big campaign.
Talking about the Tigers? Well, anyway.
No.
I'll get your thoughts before coming into the game. What were you thinking before the game? We'll just recap what we talked about a couple of weeks ago.
Yes. Well, look, before the game, I actually gave the Giants a really big sniff in this one. I gave them a really big sniff. I just thought that they were really well balanced across the ground, and I saw for the entire final series a really aggressive group of men. A group that I believe, if they bring that aggression, they really get under the skin of the opposition.
Yeah.
And they get enough stoppages where they can then get those hard-bodied midfielders around the ball.
I did feel
getting it forward.
GWS could get under the skin of the Richmond players. This is before the game.
Yeah.
That they're a real sniff. But what eventually turned out was the game done at halftime.
Yeah.
Which is let's talk about before that. Like the first quarter was actually very tense affair.
Yeah, it was.
You remember the first quarter? It's been about a week, but feels like a long time since the grand final.
It does. There's a saying, Doggy. They say that you may not be able to win the game in the first quarter, but you can certainly lose the game in the first quarter.
Yeah.
And I thought none of the teams lost the game in the first quarter, but I kept saying to myself when we were down to the last 30 seconds of the quarter and the Tigers had it in their forward half of the ground, I kept thinking, if the GWS Giants concede here, then this is going to be a big momentum swing. Yeah, this is going to be a big momentum swing. Serious. And you know what happened? 4 seconds. Daniel Rioli kicks it from outside 50, gets a goal.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Bang! And as soon as that happened, I just thought to myself, that is the momentum killer right there for the Giants. And
because I think thinking about that game, I've only watched the highlights ever since the game, and I was pretty drunk while watching it. But
you have to be.
I think the last 10 minutes of the first quarter, it was pretty much played in Richmond's half.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
And we've seen, I think GWS did it to us in the first week of finals, where it was all played in GWS's front half, and we had pretty much, it was something like 3 inside 50s for the quarter. And they had a similar experience. So I could see the outcome of that, and luckily for them, they only kicked 1 goal in quarter time. So they're only 1 goal down, but all was revealed in the next 3 quarters actually.
It unravelled. It unravelled for him, and it unravelled pretty quickly. The thing was, Doggy, what I was looking for, and look, I understand, the first quarter, the ball spilled out a lot, and it was kicked in a whole bunch of different directions, so there weren't a lot of stoppages. But when there were stoppages, the Tigers just seemed a little bit more hungry around the contest. They were tackling harder. And the Giants didn't bring that same kind of intensity that they did the week before, that they did the first week when they played the Doggies. They didn't bully.
No, I feel like they did.
You think?
I think Richmond were prepared for it.
Maybe they were.
Because that's the mark of a good team. Because I think we had to talk about it before, where I said to you that because GWS spent the first 3 weeks of finals roughing up the opponent, they were more reliant on the opponent playing a bad game rather than actually playing good football. But they still played brilliant football, don't get me wrong. But they were more reliant on the other team stuffing up and getting under their skin.
Well, that's right. Yeah.
When they get found out, and in hindsight, they did get found out against Richmond, a team that knows how to play football.
Football. You put a lot of pressure on the opposition when you bring pressure yourself. Yeah. But the problem is, it's I don't believe it's sustainable football.
Yeah.
You need to have a plan B and plan C behind that. Otherwise, you can try and bully the opposition as much as you can, but it's very, very difficult to play that sustained amount of pressure, that sustained amount of hardness your body's going to take a toll. I mean, doggy, you can't just keep whacking into someone and just expect your body to be completely squeaky clean by the end of
Richmond
it.
played the ball.
Oh, they did.
They played honest football. Whilst
They've got
you could
system.
argue GWS played dishonest football.
Yeah, that's
They're
right.
trying to rough up which worked for the first 3 weeks. I mean,
Yeah,
I think arguably in the prelim, I think Collingwood just had a bad 5 minutes and they scored
they did.
4 goals in a row.
they did.
So that's on Collingwood. But for the most part, they were actually dominating that game.
And you're
and
right.
This week, they got totally found out.
They did. And they tried to play that possession game again where they tried to, once they possess the ball, the Giants, they try to kick it around and they try and switch the ball from one flank to the other. But the problem was, right, the GWS Giants gut runners weren't running hard enough, making leads, getting opportunities.
Injury clouds.
Well, that's it.
Phil Davis.
Oh, man.
I heard he couldn't even jump at the ball. He
Man,
looked like
you looked at him.
He did a fitness test right before the game.
Exactly.
So
and you ask any of the traditional coaches in the AFL, VFL who used to coach, you get that ticked off on Thursday, not on Saturday, on Thursday.
it was like an hour before the game.
An hour before the game. That is a terrible look for the Giants.
Even if he does smash out that fitness test, he's still tired from those fitness tests.
And not taking any, not devaluing a Stevie Johnson, but you think about him, right? He's not the captain. You know, he's a player who's under an injury cloud, yes. But he doesn't have as much pressure on himself.
That's kind of like the sliding doors moment, right?
It is.
If Phil Davis plays well and GWS win, then probably a masterstroke.
Everyone says it. Everyone says it, you know. But the fact, it just wasn't a good look. It just wasn't a good look. You know, you do all that in behind closed doors, and you come out onto the ground. You give us 5-10 minutes of just your hardest sprinting at the ball, picking up the ball. He couldn't do it. He couldn't do it, and he couldn't stay with Jack Rewalt. Jack Rewalt outscored GWS.
He had a free jump at the ball every single time.
Every single time, went up, took it, mate. Phil Davis on his best day. He's one of the best contested markers in the game.
Probably one of the best shutdown defenders as well.
Exactly. Couldn't go with Jack. Jack.
Not at all.
And
there's mismatches everywhere.
There was.
Lockie Whitfield was another one who had his appendix removed. Missed the prelim because of it. But
it was very fragile. Very fragile.
It was weird because I felt something was off. It was like so many times in the first quarter he got the ball and he kicked with his left when he could have kicked with his right.
Oh, I saw that. I noticed that.
You noticed that, right?
And
it just felt strange.
And the other thing is, Dongy, match awareness, you know? There are these moments where he just possessed the ball for too long and just took it that extra couple of steps to try and kick the ball, and he gets shut down straight away. You know what the Tigers' pressure is going to be like. But you can just tell.
If you know you're not up to it, then you're not up to it.
You got to put your hand up. Steve Caniglio, he did the right thing. Yeah.
Imagine if he played.
Tuesday in that week. Oh, who knows? Who knows? But he declared himself unfit. And sometimes you got to do it for the team. Yeah. You're rather a fresh player, may not be the same kind of quality, but you know he's going to give him. You know he's going to give his all.
I don't think. Yeah, like sometimes you take a look at Whitfield. His 80% is better than the next player's 100%.
That's true.
But the thing is, I don't think Lockie Whitfield was even up to 50%. Like, goodness sakes, he only kicked on his left foot.
Exactly. And look, I've never had my appendix removed, but let me say this: I've had a surgery, and by all means, I wouldn't be getting onto a football field 3 or 4 days after a pretty serious surgery. Yeah. He just wouldn't do it. I mean, grand finals. Yeah. That's a different. You know.
I know Marcus Bontempelli had his appendix removed. He had at least 1 week, maybe 2 weeks off. 2 weeks off.
And look, you probably can do that in season
and
regular.
that might have been during the bye week as well. Yeah. So 3 weeks off, give or take.
But I understand. GWS win that game. Lockie Whitfield plays well and he's clean with his disposals. We're all talking about it going masterstroke, absolute genius. Yeah. But when you get beaten
by 89 points,
and that's the thing, you know, they lose by.
It wasn't a margin of 5 points.
They lose by 2 goals.
I think
different.
If it was a margin of less than 3 goals, then we'd be talking about different things. But ultimately, they got found out.
But it's easy to talk about negatives with GWS.
Let's talk about Richmond.
Well, let's talk about the positives.
What was the turning point? What was the point where you thought, well, that is the true moment this year, besides what was the obvious one at the end of the first quarter?
Well, I'd have to say it was probably when Dusty Martin found Marley and Pickett open up in the 50, gets it to him.
Was that in the third quarter?
That was, Might have been the third quarter.
I think it's when Marley and Pickett got a centre clearance and he just did a
He did
blind
the
turn.
and he did the blind turn.
Yeah,
I thought,
Dusty.
that's confident.
First game.
Yeah, there's a lot of moments where you could say that this is the nail in the coffin.
I think that was the moment because I think the margin was about 2 or 3 goals by then.
Yeah.
And then they got to the 4-goal mark, and by this time, if there's any more goals after 4 goals in the grand final, you're thinking this is trouble.
I thought for a moment maybe half time GWS would come out with a different approach, maybe a different hunger, a bit more energetic around the ball. They might rough them up, and they missed their flight. You know,
I had a gut feeling at half time that we knew the game was over.
I think so. I think there was a murmur around the ground.
Maybe that's
about
me
it.
being a bit biased.
Yeah, well, I just kind of I think because the grand final is such a significant game, you like to think that a team just doesn't switch off mentally at halftime. You like to think that there's enough coaches around, there's enough specialists within the group, there's enough medical people, there's enough people in general within that rooms giving people confidence to say, hey, go out there. This game's still well and truly alive. So I was expecting GWS to respond. They didn't. And as a result, you got that moment where Marley and Pickett just put the absolute nail in the coffin, kicked the goal beautifully from, I think it was maybe 30 metres out. It was a good moment because Dusty Martin, up to that stage, he was good, but you wouldn't say he was the best on ground. And I think after Marley and kicked that goal, you thought maybe he's best on ground, So it was a big moment for the guy who, remarkable story.
Yeah, was in jail.
Yeah, was in jail. Had a long time out of
mistakes,
the game.
But
he's 27 years old. Yeah. He's got a family, and he came from Western Australia.
Yeah, I think he played in Waffle with Tim Kelly.
There you go. And actually, it's funny when they were talking about the mid-season rookie draft. They spoke Marley and Pickett. They put him in the same category as Tim Kelly. Similar story, similar background, and similar kind of player.
He couldn't actually play anything into the finals because he had a broken finger.
That's correct. Yeah. I was kind of I'll be honest with you. He was on Essendon's radar for a little while, Marley.
Yeah.
Yep. And I was kind of hoping Essendon would take him because there were murmurs that this would possibly be the next Tim Kelly.
Who did you end up taking, by the way?
I think we took Will Snelling.
Snelling?
Look, he played very well in the SANFL, but he's a smaller player, and he's not necessarily an inside midfielder, which Essendon kind of need a hard body inside mid. Is Marley in that? He's got a lightish frame, but he's very, very clean ball skills.
Yeah.
So suits Richmond perfectly, but he wouldn't have played for a while because of that broken finger. And maybe that's why Essendon said maybe not worth the risk. We need to play it out. But look at what they've been able to do with him. It was
they took the gamble.
They took a gamble. They took a risk. They took a big risk.
It's so strange to see a debut game for a grand final, isn't it?
It's different. I honestly thought but here's the other thing, Dongy. So They had Camden McIntosh, who obviously is a premiership player from 2017.
Yeah.
If they were going like for Graham, who ended up dislocating his shoulder in the prelim, bravely played on, but was never going to play the week after. They were looking for a like for like, so they're looking Jack Ross. But here's the thing, Jack Ross, still relatively unproven. I think he's 20 years old, pretty light body.
I don't think Marley and Pickett was proven before they came here.
And look, he wasn't proven, but if winning the best on ground the previous week in a VFL premiership is unproven, then, maybe he was unproven. But he had a couple of runs on the board. He played very, very well against the Essendon VFL team.
He's 27 years old, so he's more mature.
He's played around. Thing is, nothing to lose for him.
Yeah, it's his first game. It's only going to be up from here.
Exactly. And so now he's a one game AFL premiership player. And third in the Norm Smith medal count. So that's pretty bloody good.
Pretty good for your first game.
Pretty bloody good.
It's going to be scary next year.
It's going to be scary next year. Full preseason.
Dustin Martin, Dion Prestia, and Marley and Pickett in the midfield with.
It's a good midfield. It's a good midfield. Yeah. It's a good midfield. They don't have to. Richmond don't have to do anything else. They don't have to acquire anyone else. They can just naturally develop.
Alex Rance is going to come back.
Yep.
Holy shit.
Yep, they can just naturally develop all that talent that they've got.
Scary proposition.
Very scary. Scary. They're going to be hard to beat next year.
Yeah.
They're going to be very hard to beat.
But the Norm Smith winner was Dustin Martin.
Two-time. He
got maximum votes. Yeah. He got 3.
He did. Look, to be honest.
Do you feel like he deserved it?
Watching it live, initially I said no. Initially I couldn't quite pick it. pardon the pun there, I couldn't quite pick it. And I thought Basher Hooley was incredibly clean, and I thought he could even win it again. I thought Preshdow had good moments. I mean, you can't ignore Jack Rewalt, kicked 5 goals, and they weren't all in junk time. He outscored GWS. I thought Lynch...
2 of them were in junk time.
Yeah. And I think Lynch did enough as well. He was a proven target.
Lynch had goals in moments where they needed to push their lead.
Exactly. Just so clean.
I think Dustin Martin was just always part of the game.
Yep.
And that's why he got 3 votes.
And that's why I reflected on it as well. He kicked some important goals. He kicked some very important goals.
Very unorthodox the way he went about those goals. He avoided contact.
Yep.
Which is strange, but that's the testament to his football knowledge.
Yeah.
Just avoiding contact. More like you as a youngster, you're always taught to remain in contact, keep the ball in front. But no, he just waited at the back because he knew that's where the ball would be. Right?
Exactly. It's just that football IQ, and he's becoming
ironically
more intelligent player.
You do the thing that's not orthodox, wins you the Norm Smith, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. But, in general, he was probably the best midfielder on the ground. I mean, look, if I looked at GWS players were never going to poll votes. You can't in a 90-point loss. But I thought Tim Taranto for the GWS Giants, he just looked clean all day. He just looked like he belonged on the big stage, which I can't say about a lot of those Giants players.
Isn't
he? Yeah, he's still relatively young, but great pickup. Oh, he's going to be an absolute gun. There's no question about it. Just as long as GWS can keep him, and I think they will. I think he's pretty committed to that club. I think he's going to stay.
There's a good culture brewing up north of it.
I like it.
Yeah.
I like it. I really like it. But yeah, no, Dusty definitely best player on ground. And look, as I said, there was a lot of contributors, and that's why it was a difficult one. But then you just kind of saw his brute strength. You saw some of the goals he kicked from outside 50. You saw the way he was setting up play. Yeah.
He's always part of it.
He's always a part of it. And he's so passionate.
Was probably led to a scoring chain or something like that. Didn't waste too many possessions.
That's right.
But did have my hand in my heart when they were announcing it because they said number 4. And then I'm like, wait, it's Toby Green. Because and I think
I
got a funny story about
you
this.
have said this for a long time. You didn't want this guy to have a medal.
No.
You didn't want it.
I have a funny story about this. So I was at my friend's house watching the game, and we had a bet in the house when, in the case that GWS wins the premiership, if Toby Green gets the best on ground, Norm Smith, then my friend is going to get frosted tips. And then it changed throughout the day when we were just like, what if it's just Toby Green that gets the Norm Smith? And admittedly, he didn't have that good of a game. But he might have been GWS' second best player. He was always trying to do things to get them back into the game, but ultimately...
That's right. He actually fed it off Dustin Martin at one stage. I don't know if you noticed that. I was like, wow! Yeah. Where did that come from? Learn a thing or two.
Bit strange. It's like the little scrawny kid at school pushing off big Samoan guy. Yeah,
well, he's got a knack for it, the old Tobes. But it would have been very funny if he got the Norm Smith. But no.
Yeah. Have we talked about what we talked about for the grand final? Feel like it's over? Any last thoughts?
Oh, look, I just think, regardless of what happens with the result, last year was a very close grand final. I loved it. I just thought for
best
4
grand
quarters.
Final since 2016.
Best grand final. Yeah, 2016 was a good grand final.
There's gonna be a lot of bring up 2016.
2011 was a very close grand final. 2012 was a really close grand final. And one of my favourites, the 05-06 were awesome.
Hawthorn 301 was pretty close.
Yeah, but the skill level of that by Freo was just really hard to watch. And it was quite sloppy with Ross Lyon's game style. But yeah, look, to be honest, I think regardless of the result, I love grand final week. I love the build-up. There's talk about making grand final twilight, nighttime. Look, it might work.
I don't care. I just want to see a grand final.
And I love the atmosphere. I love the spectacle.
Love the build-up.
Yeah. The talent was good this year. Yeah. And I just thought, you know what? at the end of the day, it's just such an exciting day on the calendar. It's such an exciting week. Melbourne puts on an absolute show. So fantastic.
Yeah.
Kudos to the AFL. Well done to everyone involved. And yeah, I hope GWS learn a lesson because as we saw with Adelaide, you can either come back the next season and you can be really strong and you can compete, or you can just disappear and you can play the Richmond song on a bus and you can get traumatised. Yeah. So I really hope GWS come back with a plan. Otherwise, they're not going to return for a very long time, Mr. Dog.
It's one of those things where it could make or break your club. In saying that, as a Bulldogs supporter who I know the rivalry between us and GWS is strong, a part of me says, I hope this grand final will always define them as a football club. And they will never achieve anything greater than this. But that's just the rivalry side of football. Like, I hope this is all they are. They're
just going to plateau now.
Yeah.
It's just...
But, you know...
But we honestly...
In the real case, as a person, I do wish GWS... good luck in the future, you know.
You're struggling to say. I can tell you're struggling to say it. All right.
The rivalry pure sporting sense.
It's like
fuck 'em, but
I'll be honest, Dom. When the prospect was coming up of a Collingwood Richmond grand final, now I look at it, I think maybe a better spectacle. But it's like trying to pick your favourite kid. It's like I can't pick which team I want to win more because I just. Being an Essendon supporter, being a true Victorian, I hate them both.
Yeah, me too.
At least with a Sydney team in there that's relatively likeable, I'm like, I want to root for them. Did I tell you this? I blew up orange balloons and I bought orange streamers.
Yeah.
I got rid of them very quickly.
Saw you posted on Instagram.
Thank you. I even went to the effort. I thought, God, if they win this, I am going to Swan Street dressed in orange and I'm going to give them a... No, that was never happening. That was never happening.
You wouldn't make it past the station.
I would have been on the missing list a couple of days afterwards.
You tap off your my key and wouldn't make it past the corner hotel.
No, you wouldn't.
Under the bridge a bit and then... Whoa!
But Doggy, now that we're on the topic of grand finals, who's your pick for next year's grand finals? Who's the grand finalist next year? Off the bat, straight off the bat. Bang.
I'm going to say Richmond.
Richmond, yeah.
Yeah.
They're not going to get bowed out in another prelim?
Nah. It's just their team. No one's... Well, Brandon Ellis already went.
Yeah.
But no one in the team's really going to... I don't think they're going to drop off. Yeah. Alex Rance is going to come back. They're going to be strong. Unless they have some freakish injuries.
Who will they play? Are you going to play Collingwood?
Oh... Look, I want to say Bulldogs, but I know that's...
It's definitely not going to be it, so don't worry about that.
We'll talk about the Bulldogs in the next
We podcast. We will. I reckon it's going to be Richmond West Coast. I have a feeling that might happen because and we will talk about the trades.
Are you already penciling in Tim Kelly going to West Coast?
I reckon
is that the reason why?
It's gonna get done. Yeah. It's gonna be like one of those deadline ones, and we're gonna talk about it a little bit more in our next episode. But yeah, Richmond West Coast. I reckon that's a real possibility. Yeah. Because I think West Coast they blew their opportunity. Yeah. They're good enough, but they blew their opportunity. Yeah. But, I need a crystal ball for this one. But, let's say Richmond West Coast for now. We'll see what happens in a year time.
Okay, in an optimistic view, I think the top four at least will be the three teams we mentioned, Richmond, West Coast and Collingwood.
Yeah.
I want to say us in the Bulldogs in fourth, but that's just a bit biased for me.
You can get some handling.
I'll talk about my reasoning.
Of course. It'd be good to see Brisbane up there, but
Brisbane. Brisbane.
But they're not going to get an easy draw this season, so I reckon they might drop a little bit.
Second, so their draw's going to be harder. They had a really easy draw this year.
Might be lucky.
When it came to the sword, they eventually bowed out.
They did, but good on them. They came a long way. They came a very long way.
They got found out.
It's nearly a
when
fairy
they played
tale.
Richmond at home.
They did, weirdly enough. It was going to happen, and a quality side like Richmond, they planned meticulously. It was going to happen. But Doggy, going to be a fascinating season next season. Yeah. But let's hope for a better grand final.
We'll get a proper wrap up in the next podcast.
Of course.
Us, the Bulldogs and the Dons.
We will.